Hi, I'm Dr. Anna Baranowski, and the question today is ayahuasca a healing modality for trauma? And I'm here with Dr. Tanya, and she is specializing in the use of ayahuasca for healing trauma and addictions and other things. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her work, first of all. And I know that you are working in Peru, and you're doing some really specific work. But can you start off by telling us where you're working and your title?
Sure. So I am actually based in Vancouver. I'm trained as a naturopathic doctor, but I'm the integration director for the Temple of the Way of Light, which is a Shipibo Ayahuasca Healing Center based in Iquitos, Peru. So mostly what I do is talk to people on Skype to help them prepare to come down for their retreats and then to help them integrate back into their life once they come home. I also do some screening sessions to see if people are prepared to do the work and to see if we're ready to support them in the ways that they need. And then sometimes I get to go down to the jungle and facilitate retreats. So we have highly trained, highly skilled indigenous shamans that we work with, and then in the daytime we have Western facilitation staff that help people understand and process their experiences and help kind of bridge the Western mind and the Western worldview with the shamanic understanding of the way that things work.
So, Tanya, what is this thing, ayahuasca? Is it a method? Is it a medicinal plant like some people are talking about? Is it some special thing that gets us hooked into some higher level of mystical growth? Because people are talking about that as well. So what is this thing?
It's a good question.
Okay.
Ayahuasca is a blend of two plants at the most basic level. So it's a vine that contains monoamine oxidase inhibitor and a leaf that contains DMT. So normally when you take DMT, it doesn't cross into your brain if you eat it or if you ingest it because it dissolves in your stomach too quickly. When you combine it with the vine, it prevents the DMT from getting broken down, so it can actually cross into your brain and you can have a psychedelic effect. Of all the plants in the jungle, it would actually be impossible to, by trial and error, discover how to put these two plants together. And when you ask geographically isolated regions of people who use this plant, this combination of plants, how they knew to combine these two plants, unanimously they say the plants told us. So from a worldview where plants can talk, where plants have spirits just like people do, ayahuasca is a spirit. And it's a spirit that can help you to heal and it can help you to see yourself. So when you ingest this brew, this chemically sophisticated brew, it causes the release of serotonin in your brain, it causes a psychedelic effect, and it also allows for you to be able to connect with the spirit of ayahuasca that can help you go deep into yourself to connect with your true self and remove any blockages that are in the way of you experiencing your true self. It's a purgative, and you might purge in a number of ways, by vomiting, by shaking, by having diarrhea. And often people are able to connect this purging process with letting go of or releasing specific energetic blockages or traumas that they've experienced in their life. This is all done in the context of a ceremony where we work with highly trained, like I said, indigenous shamans who have spent years and years and years working with plants and learning how to become doctors inside the shamanic worldview. Again, getting messages, getting teachings directly from the plants to learn how to use their songs to heal people. When they're working in ceremony with people, they work one-on-one with them and do highly specific energetic surgeries to help direct the ayahuasca and the spirits of the other plants where they need to go in your body. So they use the ayahuasca kind of like an x-ray to be able to see where the blockages are, where the trauma is, and then they use their voice and their breath to guide the medicine and the spirits to those places in your body so that you can release them and move beyond them.
Wow. So that would suggest that there's a lot of things that we don't understand in the universe, which I actually believe. I think that we are far too arrogant in our Western philosophical view of the world and the planet and what we're doing here even. And so it's kind of revealing these mystical layers almost, that there are things that are going on and that in fact the entire world around us, our natural planet, is here motivating us to evolve and to grow and to help us heal and recover as well. So I want to just touch on another thing, this idea that you have to do this ayahuasca in the right context or frame, that it's not okay to just go and find somebody who does this ayahuasca experience or has the plant and the drink, the brew you called it, that you drink. So why would somebody want to choose to go to something like the Temple of the, tell me the full name again?
Temple of the Way of Light.
The Temple of the Way of Light. Why would they want to go to someplace like that rather than, let's say, you know, finding somebody who has done it a couple times to guide them?
Yeah, it's kind of like going to your friend and saying, give me open heart surgery. You wouldn't do that, it would be crazy. And when you're pursuing the use of ayahuasca specifically for therapeutic purposes, but also for personal development purposes, it's really important to be working with people who know what they're doing. On the one hand, if you look at, say, yoga has been co-opted and adapted and changed into a million different things from its original form. And some forms of yoga in the West are still very strongly connected to lineage, and some are not. And ultimately, I would say the benefit on society is positive. Like, I started doing hot yoga, and that was my entry point into spirituality, and that was a huge catalyst for me. I didn't stay at that level. It helped me find something bigger. With ayahuasca, you're in a much more vulnerable place than a yoga class. You're opening yourself up energetically, you're opening yourself up psychically and psychologically, and there's a lot more that could potentially go wrong. So working with people who aren't trained, who aren't skilled, can actually be quite dangerous. And especially if you're looking to heal trauma, the potential to be re-traumatized in a way that actually sets you back on your healing path. And again, on the one hand, it's part of your path and you can learn from it, and there's no wrong that can happen. On the other hand, you could choose to just work with someone safely from the beginning. And I was at the World Ayahuasca Conference recently in Brazil, and there were
And that, I just want to make a comment about that.
Yeah.
There's a World Ayahuasca Conference. Like, what it says to me is that there's some shift in our consciousness around what could potentially lead to healing. And this idea that it's come to the place where people are talking about something that in the past, a psychedelic drug really, is being taken as a possible route for recovery is quite a shift in consciousness in itself.
Agreed, and it's becoming quite popular. Like, ayahuasca has been written about in every major publication and every major news thing. There's videos and YouTube videos and sensationalist everything. And there's a World Ayahuasca Conference. And at this conference, there was a great coming together of representatives from many different indigenous cultures and scientists and anthropologists and people who were working clinically with this medicine. And the unanimous view from the indigenous representatives seemed to be, we're okay with the globalization of ayahuasca. We're okay with you using it, we're okay with you learning how to use it, but please respect tradition. We've been doing this for thousands of years. Don't just go and try and do it on your own. And I think if we're really trying to learn to do something new in the world, if we're really trying to heal not just ourselves and the planet, we need to look at ways of doing things that are not so Western.
Right, so why bother skipping steps if you have all these remarkable experts who are there to guide the process, who have thousands of years? It's like, we don't want to get into this notion that we can somehow just co-opt something that other people have some real depth and understanding of.
Yeah.
Right. You talked about one more thing, and this is probably an addition, a Western addition, and that was the integration piece.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could talk to how important it is for this, what you're calling integration work, both before and after, and how long after?
Yeah, so it's been written about in kind of psychedelic science world for years that a psychedelic experience has three phases. There's the preparation, and there's the experience, and then there's the integration. And these are all intricately connected and very important for a positive experience, a healing experience. With ayahuasca, there's preparation, which includes things like diet and things like meditation and things like setting your intention. And then there's the ceremony. And then sometimes there's an element of processing where somebody will help you understand and interpret the experience in a way that forwards your healing. And then there's integration. And integration is what you do when you go back into your life. And specifically with ayahuasca, there seem to be some common challenges that people face. Sometimes there's an unblocking to emotion and you purge some of the emotions, but not all of them. So there can be a continued purging process that happens over months. People who've been shut down and numb for a long time all of a sudden learn how to feel, and it can be really disorienting to come back into the world without your coping mechanisms. It's also kind of like going on a backpacking trip. Anyone who's been on a backpacking trip for say 2 months, 3 months, is like so excited to come home and see their friends and family and see how much they've grown because you've grown so much. And then you get home and everybody is exactly the same. And how do you stay connected to what you learned? How do you stay connected to this new person that you've become? With ayahuasca, it's a deeper level of healing and a deeper level of transformation that happens. So when the environment is set up to bring you back to the person that you were before, it's difficult to stay connected. So approaching making changes in the environment, it's also really common for people to want to change their job or change their relationship or change their relationships and friendships. And that can be challenging. And the goal of integration support is to try and help people approach that gracefully. You know, in the jungle, people grow up surrounded by plants. You know, and then we go from the West and drink a jungle medicine and have Western minds and come back into Western society, into the city. So there can be a kind of natural integration process. You know, they don't really talk about integration much in traditional societies. It's just something that's part of the work. For us, coming back into a society that's totally different and disconnected and alienated to begin with, integration is something that needs a lot of attention.
So I know you've had your own experiences with ayahuasca. You talk about that very openly. And you also talk about how ayahuasca heals trauma. And I know on 2 levels. One, you've spoken openly about how ayahuasca has healed your trauma, but as an integration specialist using ayahuasca, you've witnessed how people recover and integrate trauma using ayahuasca. And I wonder if you could end with that, because I think that's really kind of at the heart of the matter.
Yeah. Where do I even start with that?
How do you know it heals?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I would say that ayahuasca hasn't healed me. You know, I've healed myself with the help of ayahuasca and with the help of the shamans that have worked with me, and it's a relationship. You have to put in your part of it. It's not a pill that you take and all of a sudden your trauma disappears. What ayahuasca seems to be really good at doing is helping people get into a new kind of relationship with something, with themselves, with their trauma, with their pain, with their fear, with their addictions. And so you don't relate to it in the same way. You understand it from a new, compassionate, unconditionally loving place, and you're able to process the emotions in a very deep way, partly with the help of an extra flood of serotonin in your brain. So there's an increased level of neuroplasticity that's available. So you're able to revisit these experiences, and just at a basic physiological level, you're there, you have your adult self and the access to these memories or these events or these experiences that you've been through, and then your brain is in a superplastic state, so you can make new connections in a powerful way. In addition to that, there's the ceremony, there's the work that the healers are doing, which is really, really powerful, unblocking, cleaning, clearing work that makes a real difference for removing the parts of the trauma that you don't need anymore, for helping you get into a healthy relationship with your own beliefs about yourself, your own experiences. There's an added level of insight that people tend to have, so you can actually uncover, like, oh, this is how I really believe myself to be. This is this belief that I have about myself, and you can see that it's not true, and you can really shift that. And then there's the spirit side of things, where you're actually connecting, whether you believe in spirits or not, you're connecting with spirit, you're connecting with your true self, and doing that in an environment that is supportive, that really encourages that, allows for a profound shift. But like anyone who's been to a workshop will know, you have an insight. That doesn't mean that that's going to translate into a difference in your life. So you have to put in your work back in the world too. But there seems to be a deeper level of cleaning, clearing that happens with ayahuasca, because it is surgery. There's surgery that's happening. It's not just insight. It's insight plus surgery plus healing. You still have to put in your work when you go back into the world, and it can be difficult. But how do you know healing happens? I mean, I'm a completely different person from when I started drinking ayahuasca. I'm so in touch with myself. I feel really confident in my own emotional experience, and I can express that. And at the most basic level, that's true. I've also healed from celiac disease. I've healed from multiple chemical sensitivity, if you want to call it that. I've healed from PTSD. I don't have PTSD anymore, and I have had PTSD. So it's like I forget that sometimes because it's so obvious to me, but on just like an observational objective level, yeah, I don't have these things anymore, and I used to.
Wow.
And then in terms of working with other people, you know, for some people it's really difficult, and for some people the size and the sound and the volume of the ceremony and the size of the group is too much, depending on the kind of severity of PTSD. But as we know, trauma is not just PTSD. Trauma is not just big T trauma, as we've been talking about. You know, developmental trauma, it's these little things that happen. So everybody that's coming to do healing work is coming to do trauma healing work on some level. And so for most people, ayahuasca can be really helpful. You know, if you have a history of bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, if you're on antidepressant medications, you can't drink ayahuasca. But other than that, I've seen profound healing many times.
So, ayahuasca, it's still kind of a mystery in terms of what it really does, but it seems to be a new possibility, a new opportunity for healing using plant medicines. Thank you so much, Tanya, for talking to me about this and for kind of looking a little bit more deeply at what goes on in these ceremonies and how the plant medicines should be used if they're going to be used in a safe way.
Sure. So there was a talk at the Multidisciplinary MAPS conference, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Science conference in 2013 by a couple of researchers about the potential therapeutic use of ayahuasca for PTSD specifically. Hasn't been studied yet, except it has been studied now. It hasn't been published yet. So there's a study that's happening at the temple, at the place that I work, looking at all kinds of things, looking at quality of life, looking at ayahuasca efficacy for depression, for anxiety, and for PTSD. And across the board, there is an incredibly statistically significant improvement in all areas of life. And then looking at PTSD specifically, there's a dramatic reduction in symptoms, both 15 days and 1 month after ayahuasca.
So that hasn't been published yet?
Hasn't been published yet.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, so you've got, is it going in for publication?
They're still completing the study, so it's going to be the biggest study that's ever been done on ayahuasca. It's going to be about 400 people, and they're still looking for funding to complete the data analysis, but it will be published. It will be published somewhere reputable, and it's very good research.
Wow, so that's something to look forward to as well as we see this unfold, and it really is on that kind of cutting edge of new research and making a difference for people who've experienced trauma. Thank you so very much. And Dr. Tanya Mate, and you're going to tell me the name of the place where you do your work in Peru.
The Temple of the Way of Light.
Okay, we'll add those links. Thank you so much.
For more Ask Dr. Anna videos and information about post-traumatic growth and recovery, subscribe and like our YouTube videos at What is PTSD, or join us at previous video episodes in our playlist Ask Dr. Anna from the Traumatology Institute team.